The United States deployed a second aircraft carrier strike group to waters near Iran in late February 2026, accompanied by advanced fighter aircraft including F-22 Raptors. This deployment represents the most substantial U.S. military presence in the region in several years and occurs simultaneously with ongoing diplomatic negotiations in Geneva regarding Iran's nuclear program. Concurrent with these U.S. deployments, multiple media reports citing defense sources have claimed that Iran is close to acquiring advanced weapons systems from China and Russia, including supersonic anti-ship missiles and portable air defense systems. These reported acquisitions, if confirmed, could alter regional military calculations regarding the effectiveness and risks of power projection operations. This analysis examines 6 interconnected elements. First, the documented U.S. military deployments and their strategic purpose. Second, the reported Iranian acquisition of Chinese CM-302 supersonic anti-ship missiles. Third, the reported Iran-Russia agreement for Verbaman portable air defense systems. Fourth, the analytical implications for regional military balance if these weapons transfers occur. Fifth, the political and financial costs of sustained military presence and potential conflict. Sixth, the strategic stalemate characterized by mutual deterrence, competing claims, and reluctance to escalate despite ongoing tensions. U.S. Department of Defense announced on February 20, 2026, the deployment of the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group to U.S. Central Command Area of Responsibility. This followed the existing presence of the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower Strike Group, creating a 2-carrier presence in the region. Carrier strike groups include not only the aircraft carrier but also guided missile cruisers, destroyers, and support vessels, typically totaling 78 ships per group. The deployment of F-22 Raptor fighters to regional bases was confirmed through Department of Defense statements in mid-February. The F-22 is the U.S. Air Force's premier air superiority fighter with advanced stealth characteristics, supercruise capability, and sophisticated avionics. F-22 deployments typically signal high-threat environments where air superiority cannot be assumed. Additional assets reported by defense media outlets include B-52 strategic bombers, additional fighter squadrons, aerial refueling aircraft, and intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance platforms. The combined force represents substantial strike capability and defensive protection for regional operations. U.S. officials have characterized the deployments as demonstrating commitment to regional security and protecting U.S. interests and personnel. The deployments serve multiple strategic purposes, including deterrence of Iranian actions, protection of Gulf shipping lanes, support for regional partners, and provision of military options if diplomatic efforts fail to achieve nuclear agreement. The timing coincides with the Geneva negotiations between the United States and Iran regarding nuclear restrictions. The military presence creates backdrop pressure while negotiations proceed, demonstrating that military options remain available if diplomacy fails. This represents standard practice of conducting negotiations from a position of strength. Historical context shows that U.S. carrier presence in the Gulf region has fluctuated over time. During periods of heightened tension, the United States has maintained 2-carrier presence. During periods of relative calm, or when priorities shift to other regions, carrier presence has been reduced to 1 or 0. The current 2-carrier deployment indicates assessment of elevated risk or importance. Multiple media outlets, including Reuters, Defense News, and regional Middle Eastern news sources, have reported in late February 2026 that Iran is close to finalizing acquisition of Chinese CM-302 supersonic anti-ship missiles. These reports cite unnamed defense sources, intelligence assessments, and analysis of satellite imagery showing potential weapons shipments. The CM-302 is a Chinese-manufactured supersonic cruise missile designed specifically for anti-ship operations. The missile reportedly travels at speeds exceeding Mach 2, uses sea-skimming flight profile to avoid radar detection until late in flight, and carries a substantial warhead. Chinese defense industry materials describe the missile as designed to engage large surface vessels, including aircraft carriers. The specific details of the reported Iran-China deal have not been officially confirmed by either government. Neither Iranian nor Chinese officials have made public statements confirming the transfer. The reports remain in the category of intelligence assessments and media claims based on unnamed sources rather than verified governmental announcements. If the transfer occurs, Iran would significantly enhance its anti-ship capabilities. Iran currently operates various anti-ship missiles, including Chinese C-802 missiles acquired in previous decades and domestically produced systems. The addition of supersonic missiles would represent qualitative improvement in capability to threaten large naval vessels. The strategic significance relates to the difficulty of defending against supersonic missiles. U.S. Navy ships are equipped with Aegis Combat System, SM-2 and SM-6 interceptor missiles, rolling airframe missile point defense systems, and close-in weapon system guns. These systems are designed to engage multiple threat types, including subsonic and supersonic missiles. However, supersonic missiles reduce the time available for detection, tracking, fire control solution, and interception. A missile traveling at Mach 2.5 covers approximately 850 meters per second. Against a ship 40 kilometers away, the missile would arrive in less than 50 seconds after rising above the radar horizon. This compresses defensive reaction timelines substantially compared to subsonic threats. The effectiveness of supersonic anti-ship missiles against defended targets remains subject to debate in naval warfare analysis. U.S. Navy officials express confidence in Aegis system capabilities to engage supersonic threats. However, the combat effectiveness can only be definitively proven in actual combat conditions, which have not occurred between peer military forces in modern naval warfare. The strategic calculus for carrier operations would be affected. Aircraft carriers traditionally operate outside the range of land-based threats, using their embarked aircraft to project power. If credible supersonic anti-ship missile threats exist with ranges exceeding 200 to 300 kilometers, carrier operating areas must be positioned further from hostile coastlines, reducing aircraft sortie rates and time on station. Separate reports in February 2026 claim that Iran and Russia have reached agreement for transfer of Verba man-portable air defense systems. These reports appeared in Israeli defense media, regional news outlets, and defense analysis publications. Like the anti-ship missile reports, these claims cite unnamed intelligence sources and have not been officially confirmed by Russian or Iranian governments. The Verba, designated 9K333 in Russian nomenclature, is a shoulder-fired surface-to-air missile system designed to engage low-flying aircraft, helicopters, and unmanned aerial vehicles. The system represents improved version of earlier Igla manpads with enhanced targeting capabilities, better resistance to countermeasures, and improved range estimated at 6 kilometers. Man-portable air defense systems pose specific threats to military aviation. The systems are small, easily concealed, and can be operated by individual soldiers or small teams. This allows them to be positioned in diverse locations without requiring large installations or extensive infrastructure. Aircraft operating at low altitudes for close air support, reconnaissance, or landing takeoff phases become vulnerable. U.S. and allied aircraft operating in potential conflict scenarios with Iran would face increased risk from widespread manpads deployment. Helicopter operations, which are essential for personnel transport, medevac, and attack missions, become particularly vulnerable. Fixed-wing aircraft conducting close air support or operating from regional bases during takeoff and landing phases face elevated risk. Military aircraft have countermeasures, including infrared flares to decoy heat-seeking missiles, maneuvering to break missile lock, and tactics to minimize time in vulnerable flight profiles. However, countermeasures are not perfectly effective, and concentrated manpads deployments increase the probability that some missiles will successfully engage targets. The broader pattern of reported Russian weapons transfers to Iran includes air defense systems. Russia previously delivered S-300 air defense systems to Iran after years of negotiations and international legal disputes. The S-300 provides long-range air defense capability against aircraft and missiles. If VERBA transfers occur, this would complement the longer-range systems with short-range point defense. Neither the CM-302 nor VERBA transfers have been definitively confirmed through official government statements or independent verification. Intelligence assessments and media reports represent the current evidence. Both China and Russia have arms export industries and have sold weapons to various countries. Both have strategic interests in relationships with Iran. However, specific deals often involve complex negotiations, financing arrangements, and political considerations that may delay or prevent finalization. If both reported weapons acquisitions materialize, the implications for regional military operations would be significant. The combination of enhanced anti-ship missiles and improved air defense creates what military planners term anti-access area denial capabilities. These capabilities are designed to prevent or complicate adversary military operations in specific geographic areas. For U.S. naval operations, the presence of credible supersonic anti-ship missile threats would require carriers to operate at greater distances from Iranian coastline. Aircraft carriers are high-value assets representing substantial financial investment and carrying approximately 5,000 personnel. The loss or severe damage to a carrier would constitute major military setback and significant political crisis. Operating at extended distances reduces the effectiveness of carrier air operations. Combat aircraft have limited range, and longer distances to target areas reduce time over target, number of sorties possible per day, and weapons payload that can be carried. The operational effectiveness of carrier-based air power decreases with distance from targets. For air operations, widespread deployment of capable man-pads forces changes in tactics and operational planning. Aircraft may need to operate at higher altitudes, reducing effectiveness of certain mission types. Close air support becomes more difficult and risky. Helicopter operations may be restricted to areas where man-pads' threat can be suppressed through prior operations. The defensive counter to anti-access capabilities involves multiple approaches. Suppression of enemy air defenses operations target missile systems and radars before main operations. Long-range strike assets, including cruise missiles and bombers, can engage targets while remaining outside defensive threat ranges. Submarine-launched weapons provide another avenue for strike operations without surface ship vulnerability. The military balance is dynamic rather than static. Capabilities create counter-capabilities. If Iran acquires advanced missiles, the United States adjusts tactics, deploys additional countermeasures, and develops new operational approaches. The question is not whether U.S. military could conduct operations despite enhanced Iranian defenses, but rather what costs, risks, and timelines would be involved. The political dimension of military balance is crucial. The loss of a major U.S. naval vessel or aircraft with personnel casualties would create immediate political crisis. Congressional investigations, media scrutiny, and public reaction would be substantial. The political costs could exceed the direct military impact. For the administration conducting operations that result in such losses, the political consequences include damaged credibility, opposition criticism, and potential electoral implications. This creates political constraint on military decision-making. Operations that are militarily feasible may be politically unacceptable if risks of high-profile losses are significant. The financial costs of sustained military deployment are substantial. Operating a carrier strike group costs approximately $7 million per day when deployed, including personnel, fuel, maintenance, and support costs. Two carrier groups represent roughly $12 to $14 million daily. Extended deployments over months accumulate costs in hundreds of millions to billions of dollars. These costs must be weighed against other defense priorities and budget constraints. Forces deployed to one region are unavailable for other potential contingencies. The opportunity cost includes reduced presence or capability in other strategic areas, including East Asia, Europe, or other regions. The maintenance cost extends beyond deployment period. Ships and aircraft require scheduled maintenance after deployment periods. Extended or intensive operations accelerate wear on equipment, requiring more extensive maintenance and earlier replacement of components. The long-term costs of sustained high operational tempo include reduced equipment life and increased maintenance budgets. Military spending must be justified in political terms. The public and Congress evaluate whether costs are proportionate to interests at stake. Sustained, expensive deployments without clear achievement of objectives can generate political pressure for policy changes or withdrawal. The strategic situation as of late February 2026 is characterized by mutual deterrence and reluctance to escalate despite ongoing tensions. The United States has deployed substantial military capability, demonstrating willingness and ability to conduct operations if required. Iran has pursued diplomatic negotiations while reportedly enhancing defensive capabilities to raise costs of potential U.S. military action. Claims and counterclaims circulate regarding missile capabilities and intentions. Some U.S. officials and media reports have claimed Iran is developing missiles capable of reaching U.S. territory. Iranian officials deny nuclear weapons development and characterize missile programs as defensive. The information environment includes genuine intelligence assessments, political messaging, and information warfare. Neither side appears to actively seek military conflict. The United States prefers negotiated resolution to nuclear concerns, as evidenced by continued diplomatic engagement. Iran prefers to maintain sovereignty and program development while avoiding military confrontation with superior U.S. conventional forces. However, neither side wants to appear weak or be seen as backing down under pressure. For U.S. leadership, demonstrating resolve is important for credibility with regional partners and allies. Retreat from stated positions on Iran nuclear weapons would be characterized as weakness by domestic political opposition. For Iranian leadership, resistance to external pressure is central to political legitimacy and revolutionary ideology. Agreement to restrictions that appear imposed by foreign powers creates internal political risk. The leadership must balance practical security and economic interests against ideological positioning and domestic political factors. This creates a stalemate where both sides maintain positions and capabilities while seeking resolution that allows each to claim success or at least avoid appearance of capitulation. Diplomatic negotiations continue with extended deadlines. Military forces remain deployed. Weapons acquisitions proceed or are reported to proceed. The risk in such stalemates is miscalculation or unintended escalation. Military deployments create opportunities for incidents. An accidental collision, misidentified target, or unauthorized action by field commanders could trigger exchanges neither leadership intended. Both sides have incentives to avoid conflict, but the proximity of forces and the political pressure to respond to provocations creates escalation risk. To summarize the core analytical findings, the United States deployed 2 carrier strike groups and advanced fighters to waters near Iran in February 2026, representing substantial military presence. Media reports citing intelligence sources claim Iran is close to acquiring Chinese CM-302 supersonic anti-ship missiles and Russian Verba portable air defense systems, though these claims lack official confirmation. If these weapons transfers occur, Iranian anti-access area denial capabilities would increase substantially, complicating U.S. carrier operations and air operations by requiring greater standoff distances and creating higher risk for certain mission types. The political costs of losing major U.S. assets would be severe, potentially exceeding direct military impact. Financial costs of sustained military deployment are substantial, totaling millions daily with long-term maintenance and readiness implications. The strategic situation represents mutual deterrence, where neither side seeks conflict but neither wants to appear weak, creating stalemate with ongoing diplomatic efforts, military deployments, and continued acquisition of capabilities. What remains uncertain is whether the reported weapons transfers will actually occur, what timeline would be involved if they do proceed, how U.S. operational planning would specifically adapt to confirmed new Iranian capabilities, whether diplomatic negotiations will achieve agreement that reduces military tensions, what triggers, if any, might cause transition from deterrence to actual conflict, and how long both sides can sustain current postures of military readiness combined with diplomatic engagement. The key variables shaping future developments include progress or failure of Geneva nuclear negotiations, confirmation or denial of reported weapons transfers, any military incidents or provocations that could trigger escalation cycles, domestic political pressures in both countries affecting leadership decision-making, economic factors including oil markets and sanctions impacts, and responses of regional actors including Saudi Arabia, Israel, and Gulf states to evolving military balance. Analysis continues monitoring Department of Defense statements on deployments, intelligence reporting on weapons transfers, diplomatic communications from Geneva talks, military incidents or near incidents in Gulf waters or airspace, and political statements from both governments regarding positions in red lines.